You have seen it 3 times now. Every time you create space, they just rush back in. So this time you are ready. They approach. You then backdash. Whiff. Perfect. Because you knew it. So you go for the punish. Wrong input. And now they recover. Launch. Wall carry. KO. You have now lost the game. And immediately your brain says, I shouldn't have done that. Wait. Shouldn't have done what exactly? The backdash? That worked. The read? That was correct also. Creating the whiff? No, it's exactly what you wanted. The decision was not the problem. The execution was. And if you cannot separate those things, you can accidentally stop making good decisions because one of them gave you a bad result. Welcome back to How Winners Think. Last episode, we talked about something uncomfortable. Sometimes you can make a bad decision and win, but there is another side to that. Sometimes you can make the right decision and lose. And for a lot of players, that is even harder to deal with, because when something goes wrong, we naturally tend to ask ourselves, what should I stop doing? But sometimes you should not stop doing anything. Maybe the idea was correct. Maybe the read was correct. Maybe you created exactly the situation that you wanted. Something else just simply failed. Today, we are going to learn how to separate the quality of your decision from the result that it produced. Because good decisions don't guarantee good outcomes. They give you better chances of creating them. So now, I want you to imagine this sequence, right? You backdash, your opponent whiffs, you try to punish, you miss, so they launch you, and now you lose. What is the strongest thing your brain remembers? Of course, it is probably losing. And that is because the experience hurt. Your brain starts working backwards. Maybe I should not have tried that. Maybe I should have just blocked. Maybe that was too risky. But there is a problem. You are treating the entire sequence as though it was just one decision, because it really wasn't. Several different things happened. You recognized a pattern. You made a read. You chose a response. You executed that response. Then you got a result. If you don't separate those pieces, you might fix something that was never broken in the first place. Here is a mental model that I want you guys to start using. Whenever an important interaction goes wrong, I want you to break it into 4 pieces. Alright, here goes. The first is read. What did you think your opponent was going to read? Or should I say do? The second is then decision. Based on that information, what did you choose? The third is then execution. Did you actually perform what you intended to do? And then finally, the result. What happened? These are not the same thing, and that is incredibly important, because you can have a correct read, correct decision, bad execution, bad result. If you only look at the result, you would think the entire sequence failed, but it didn't. Only one part of it failed. This is where competitive thinking thus then becomes a bit difficult. We always want certainty. We want, if I make the correct decision, I should win. But Tekken doesn't promise you that. Good decision making does not guarantee a good result every single time, no matter what your decision making is in. It improves the probability of just getting one. That is different. You can make the correct read and mistime the punish. You can create the whiff and drop the combo. You can correctly predict a low, duck, and still mess up the launch. That does not automatically mean that the original idea was bad. It just means that you created an opportunity and failed to convert it. That is frustrating, but it is also incredibly useful information, because now you know what exactly needs to be improved upon. Here is where players can accidentally damage their own game. You make a smart decision, something goes wrong afterwards, and now you are afraid to make that decision again. You stop backdashing, you stop attempting the punish, you stop trusting the read. Why? Because your brain connected that decision with pain, with loss, with hurt. But think about what you are doing. You are literally, essentially just telling yourself, I correctly predicted my opponent, created exactly the opportunity I wanted, failed the execution. Therefore, I should stop creating that opportunity, which obviously doesn't even make any sense. You don't need to remove the decision. You need to improve what happened after it. So this is the practical lesson. When something goes wrong, diagnose it. If the read was wrong, gather better information. Maybe you thought they always approached, but your sample was a bit too small. Fine. If the decision was wrong, choose a better response next time. Maybe you recognized what was coming, but selected the wrong answer. Fine. If the execution was wrong, practice it. You already created the opportunity, so now you need to become better at just converting it. And sometimes your read was reasonable, your decision was reasonable, your execution was completely fine, but yet you still lost the interaction. That also happens too very frequently. Your opponent is another human being making decisions as the game is going along. Not every situation can be controlled perfectly. Sometimes you accept the result and just move on. This is why improving can be deceptive. You see, results are loud. You win, you lose, KO, promotion, demotion. The game constantly shows you outcomes, but decision quality is quieter. There is no giant message appearing on screen saying, great decision, unlucky result. There is no rank bonus because you made the correct read but dropped the punish. You have to recognize those things yourself. And that is what stronger competitors learn to do. They don't ignore results. Results matter. But they do not allow one result to completely rewrite their understanding of what happened. During your next rank session, whenever you lose an interaction that frustrates you, do not immediately say to yourself, that didn't work. Instead, ask these 4 questions to yourself. 1. Was my read correct? 2. Was my decision correct? 3. Was my execution correct? And 4. What actually caused the result? Maybe you will discover my read was terrible. Good. Now you know what to fix. Maybe the read was right, but I chose the wrong punish. Good. Now you know. Or maybe everything was right until I dropped the execution. Then don't destroy your strategy. Practice the execution. The goal is diagnosis, not emotional reaction. One of the biggest shifts that you can make as a competitive player, for those who want to become a competitive player or even just improve their game, is accepting that good decisions will not always reward you immediately. You can do everything intelligently and still lose an interaction, maybe even the round, maybe even the match. That is not an excuse for losing. It is a reason to analyze losing properly. Because if every loss automatically means my decisions were bad, you will constantly change things that do not need changing. And if every win means my decisions were good, you will protect habits that should have disappeared months ago. That is why the last 2 episodes belong together. Sometimes bad decision, good result. Sometimes good decision, bad result. Your job is learning to recognize the difference. If you remember one thing from this video, remember this: do not abandon a good decision because of a bad result. Fix the reason the result went bad. And understand this: good decisions do not guarantee wins. They just make winning much more likely. The next time you make the read, create the whiff, choose the right response, and somehow still lose, do not immediately tell yourself that was wrong. Break it apart. Read 1, decision 2, execution 3, result 4. Then fix the part that actually failed. Because sometimes you did not lose because your thinking was wrong. You lost because good thinking still needs good execution. This has been How Winners Think. Until next time, don't judge yourself only by what happened. Understand why it happened. Think first.